Welcome to episode 289 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and Chuck Joyner is back on the show. He's hot back from CES. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm fine, Dave. That tells you I'm back from CES with
yes,
it's a bit of a cold,
CES
bit of this, a
crud.
bit of that. Yeah, but what are you going to do? It's good to be here. I'm glad I was alive enough to join.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. And I'm also glad that Jeff Gamet is here this week. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing all right. I'm assuming I'm doing better than Chuck because I'm not coughing. I'm not sick. And yeah, go me.
Go you. And the last but certainly not least, Ben Roethig is here. Or is it Ray Thing? How you doing, Ben?
It depends on if you're my car dealership's service department or not.
Yeah.
But I'm good,
there.
Dave.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm so glad everybody's here this week. And boy, it's just the news just keeps stacking up. There's all kinds of stuff to talk about this week, including CES. A little bit, we'll touch on that. So, because I'd like to get Chuck's comments on how things went while he was there with the crew, and lots of other things. And as we always do now, as we've changed the show, so we go right into topics. And so we're going to start with beta. iOS 17.3 release candidate was released, I believe that was yesterday as we record this. Yes, it was. So we have the release candidate of 17.3 and iPad OS 17.3. It's both developers and public beta testers are out just about a week after the release of the third betas. So again, it's got all the same stuff we've been talking about: stolen device protection, lock screen, Unity wallpaper, music, and all kinds of other stuff. Ben, have you put the RC on your phone? I think you'd brave that enough because that's almost the final version.
Yep. Right now it's on everything for the HomePods, which it's installing right now. It might be done by the time the apocalypse comes.
Which is 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Yeah.
Hut.
So again, we'll become. It looks like if everything goes as planned, this next week was probably going to be the final release out to the public for everybody. So get ready. There's going to be all kinds of updates. Jeff, did you do anything on your iPad on this one?
No, I have to charge my iPad back up so I can install it.
No problem. So we also have watchOS 10.3 and tvOS 17.3. Not much else to talk about that relates to that. A couple things that did stand out. 17.3 apparently is going to allow iPhones to connect to some hotel room TVs via AirPlay. Apple did share the release notes for 17.3, which will be, they say, next week. But some hotel rooms are already going to be able to be connected to TVs through AirPlay, but there's not much as far as details yet about this. We did talk about this previously, that Apple was looking at making hotel devices available. I think that's what it was, like an Apple TV type device for hotel rooms, so you can stream your own content without having to lug around your Apple TV or any other type of stuff. Isn't that what it was, Ben? It was the device on that you were actually going to be able to stream from your device right to the TVs.
Correct. It's basically going to be like SharePlay for hotel TVs.
Yeah. So this is something that's going to be good. Chuck, you're probably going to like this one as much as you traveled. You'll be able to do this in your hotel rooms, right?
I guess, Dave. Funny thing is, I seldom use the TV in my hotel room.
Yeah,
I've just gotten out.
People don't.
Well, I've just gotten out of the habit. I might turn on the morning news, but beyond that, first of all, I don't spend much time in the hotel room. But second, the iPad is fine, and usually I'm not lounging on the bed or anything. I'm usually sitting at the desk, and so the iPad is great. But that said, there are a lot of people that do, and I have to share this before we get into CES, but because Dave Hamilton had exactly the same situation. We stayed at the Mirage. We had obviously big screen TVs in the room. There's an HDMI cable hanging down right from behind the TV that was completely dead.
Of course it was.
And it's like, okay, nice effort, but so this would be great maybe if my hotel TV would do it, I would change my habits a little bit.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, here's my concern on that. kind of going off of Chuck's, most of these hotels do not have on-site IT.
Oh, content.
So, yeah. So it's going to take a while for this to hit deployment. And then if anything goes wrong, it might be a couple of weeks before anybody's able to come out and fix it.
That's reassuring.
Yep.
But at least it'll be moving forward, Ben. At least,
Yeah.
we can,
Yeah.
I mean, even if it takes, 14 months, this would be a nice capability to have down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So look more things to look forward to. We'll definitely cover 17.3 when it comes out, as we expect next week. Be lots of things to discuss, and we'll go ahead and talk about that probably next week. So let's go ahead and move on. And Chuck, I'm so glad you are here this week because I was watching you guys from a distance. All the things that you and Dave Hamilton, Allison Sheridan, Pilot Pete, Norbert was with you as your right-hand man taking care of things at CES. And so it looked like it was a lot of fun. And I'd like to just kind of hear some of the insights. So not have to spend the whole show on this, but how your experience was at CES this year and some of the things that kind of stand out. I know you're going to be publishing a lot of great content as you already started. So yeah, I'd like to hear how it was on your perspective.
We could go on for hours. I mean, because it's that big a show. It felt like the show was back to something akin to what was going on pre-pandemic, both from numbers and exhibitors and just the overall vibe, the overall feel. I think the last unaudited numbers I saw were 140,000, 145,000.
Close to 150.
Yeah. So, I don't know what the audited numbers will show, but bottom line is it's a lot of people and a lot of excitement. Yeah, there were some folks wearing masks, but frankly, not a lot, not even as many as last year. So whether people have just kind of gotten beyond that, says the guy who came home sick, right? But not with RSV and not with COVID.
No, we just got a virus.
just picked up a virus and a sinus infection and a cold, but. It's another one of those shows where everybody's looking for the killer thing. What was the big thing? If you listen to the media, even the tech media, it was the transparent TVs. Okay, walked by them, saw them. Yep, they're transparent. Not quite sure what good a transparent TV is in a world where the objectives up to this point have been to get the ultimate black, so that you could have the vibrant colors. Seems a little bit off, but a lot of iterations on things, a lot of, with all due respect to everybody, a lot of Me Too products, but that too is okay. Saw some definite innovative things, and I'd love to tell you that I could give you a rundown of all of them, but I still have to go back through, but I have to tell you, most of the time when we went to a booth or sat down with anybody or whatever, you came away getting this sense that they really care, that they're there at CES because they want to be. Sure, there are always those people who are just manning the booths to man the booths. But overall, I felt like the percentage was lower this year because there were the usual marketing managers, but there were more CEOs, COOs that were actually, in the booths or at the press events or whatever, touting the products and explaining them. So, for me, I listen to so many journalists like, I'm so glad you didn't have to go to CES. And it's like, man, you clearly are not doing it right if you're dreading it.
Yeah.
You got to go have fun. And it is fun to meet the people, see people you've talked to in past years, meet new people, see something, walk away from a booth and say, well, they won't be here in 3 months. And then, go to another booth and say, that product should make it. So, I'm happy to try to answer specific questions for the people we saw. But bottom line is that CES, as long as you go with a plan, and every year, I admit, my plan gets a little better because every year I find flaws in it and refocus. This year, we did a little less, I'm not ready to say wandering, but we did not allow ourselves to be distracted by walking by a booth and say, well, that's cool. Let's stop and talk to them. We sort of had our map and we had our purposes. And then if we had time left over, maybe you'd circle back. And I think we'll be doing more of that just because it's a lot of homework up front to go through the press releases, go through all the gibberish that the exhibitors put out. And I mean that both in a positive and a negative, in a positive negative sense. But, at the end of the day, it makes for your on the ground time, whether it's the press events, whether it's meetings in hotel suites, or whether it's just on the show floor. It definitely gets you a better quality experience.
And that's what you get. That's what we get from Mac Voices and you, because of the perspective that you have between the press events. You got 3 press events you always go to every year. That's PepCom, Showstoppers, and Unveiled. And then the hotel suites that you get to go to. I mean, I got to experience that. Is so cool because you actually get a little more intimate with those people that are in that room, because they went there for a purpose. They wanted to be there because they want you to talk to them, and they'll talk to you about their product. And I remember that was a great experience, and I'm sure you had the same exact experience in the suites this time around going there.
We did, and the other thing that seems to be happening is there's a rise of showcases where a particular PR firm might have a bunch of their clients, come and set up in just, the 4 corners in the center of a hotel room, and then somebody in the bedroom, somebody in the bathroom, somebody in a closet, literally, sometimes in a closet. But they can't, these folks they're small operations a lot of times, or it doesn't make sense for them to invest in a booth or even a full suite for the full week.
Right.
So if you want to talk to them, you go and you get that, as you said, Dave, that personal interaction, which is always, I think, just so much of the fun, because the press releases are the press releases. But when you get there, these are real people that have invested a lot of time and effort and money in creating these products, and they're proud of them. And again, sometimes you look at them and say, boy, I sure feel sorry for you, because you're not going to make it. There's just no way that this product has a wide enough audience or is well enough executed. But you try to be polite, and unfortunately, I've been right about a lot of those. Once in a while, you find one you've been wrong, and you go back the next year, and their booth has grown. So, it's just I would tell anybody that if you get the chance to experience CES, take it. Just be warned that it is a bit of a physical beating.
It's massive, and yes, you can do a lot of walking.
Yep.
Do you want to add anything, Jeff, on this?
Chuck really nailed it. And the whole thing with showing up with a plan, a well thought out plan, it's so important. Otherwise, you're just running around wasting time, and you're not going to be talking to the people you need to talk to. And that's a lot of money to spend to just waste your time.
It's expensive to be there at that time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Not only that, but if you're physically at a conference, it's taking a toll on your body.
Oh yeah, that's
if you don't have a plan, by the end of that conference, you could be walking around like you're basically one step from the NFL IR.
I don't know what that means, but I'm betting it's not good.
Yes,
I do.
And I'm
Injured
absolutely
reserve.
not saying this from I am saying this from experience.
Yeah.
I admit, by the time I wrapped up this time around, because I was just starting to get sick, it's tough. But for anyone that knows Vegas, and knows the convention center, this year you had the new West Hall was open and full. You had the North Hall and the Central Hall. Then you had all of the Sands Convention Center, including Eureka Park at the bottom level, which is quite literally. If you think of a conference table, or standard lunchroom table, that's about how wide those booths are, and they're you're shoulder to shoulder to shoulder with exhibitors and attendees. And then so that was the Sands, and then you had the hotel. Pardon me, the suites, and depending on which hotel, but I know there were several that had set up in the Mirage. There were a bunch that were at the Venetian, and sometimes the challenge is just saying, okay, which day am I going to spend in which hall or which hotel?
Yeah,
because otherwise you can't. It does not make sense to go from West Hall to Central Hall back to West Hall.
No, you waste so much time.
You lose the day.
Yeah,
too long.
Yep. So, I mean, unless you've done it, you don't understand how insanely huge these places are. These major convention centers are pretty much the size of a small town downtown. Actually, a not so small town downtown.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny you said that, Ben, because we came into the backside of what was it, Central, and sort of beside the Sony booth, if you can call it that. Well, the booth is like 4 times the size of my house, square feet, all stories considered. I mean, it's just massive. And that's just the Sony booth. So
yeah, some of those booths you go in and it's like you've gone into a different building, because you go in and there's like halls and doors going into other rooms, and
they're enormous.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's why I say I really want somebody, or I encourage anybody to, if you can get in, find a way in, or just get a chance, even just to go for a day, go and experience it, because it is sensory overload.
It is. Finally, let's wrap up this discussion. You asked us earlier this week on Mac Voices, what we gave you just, you can just give me one product or everything that stood out to you. We gave you a list of what we saw that was covered by the press, and what we found interesting. What's really stood out? If you can come up with maybe one or two items that you looked at to see what stood out.
Dave, I'm going to jump on a couple. I named a couple on Mac Voices Live, and so I'm not going to repeat those. The Blueant has in fact, I just released this interview today, so folks can go and see it. Blueant has an under your monitor soundbar for your desk. Wow. Of course, in that environment, it's really tough to tell. But from what I could tell, it sounded pretty darn good. And Blueant's been around for a long time. They know wireless audio, and they did some really very interesting engineering as to how it would sit, depending on what kind of monitor you have, how it would sit potentially above the monitor, or would at least have space for the legs for the monitor. Mm-hmm. So it felt like it was really, really well engineered. There was another company that they were actually selling the product, and so I will bring it up here. Okay. And I'm sorry I can't give their name, but it's a watch band that helps you do things Minority Report style. And it's out, and it's not Magic Leap, by the way. It's something else. This has been in research for quite some time. And that was one of the ones, honestly, we stumbled on quite by accident that I'm anxious to learn a whole lot more about. But, that's the unfair thing. I mean, if I look back, there were so many great products that were iterations. We got to stop by the Aukey booth, and the line of chargers and mounts and all that they were showing was phenomenal. Scosche always does a great job. I mean, I tend to go back to the companies that I know always deliver, that every year they're worth stopping by because they always have something interesting or beneficial. So I'm slowing down the release this year of the interviews for multiple reasons. So you're probably going to see about 2 a day, give or take, as opposed to just trying to dump out 4 or 5 and 6 a day. But each one of them, most of them are, 5 to 6 minutes. Sometimes we had somebody that would spend a little more time with us. But, check them all out and just listen for the first couple minutes, because if it's for you, great. And if it's not, that's fine. Move on to the next one. But I guarantee you're going to find some stuff that's really very, very interesting and that relates to you. I'm not sure you would be able to relate to the, $20,000 transparent TVs. These are products that you can relate to.
Hey, Chuck, every year you are just a machine.
That's, yeah.
I mean, seriously, I've always been so impressed with
Me too.
how many companies you talk to, and then after the show, how much content you put out. It's like it just keeps coming and coming for weeks. Yeah. And it's like, holy crap, where do you find the time to put out
all the time,
all of this content? And it's all great. So yeah, I just want you to know that I really appreciate what you're doing, and I get how much work goes into this, and I'm just super impressed every year.
Well, thank you.
too.
I appreciate it. It really is kind of a labor of love, because I enjoy so much going to talk to these people, because their enthusiasm about their products is infectious. No matter what I think of their product, it's infectious, and it kind of drives me. Little obligatory cough there. It drives me for the rest of the year, because I want to see what actually makes it to market and how it's going to be received. So thank you though. It's just listen, it's like going to the candy store and you just want to grab everything and get your hands on because you're only there for a few days.
Nope, and I've witnessed it firsthand in person, seeing how you work, and I'll add to that it's just amazing. You're a machine. I don't know how you do it, but we appreciate it because it's just some amazing content. So unless we have anything else to say, let's go ahead and we can move on to the next topic, which is the Apple Watch. This has been hot in the news this week. Apple lost their appeal, so they have to either remove the watch from the Apple Watch Series 9 and the Ultra 2 from market, or they opted to now they're going to remove the blood oxygen sensor, so it's not going to be, and I don't know if it's a sensor or just the software.
Just the software.
So it will not be enabled when it's sold going forward. And I believe they were talking about, were they not, they aren't going to change it to people who already own existing watches. They're not going to do that. And are not obligated to, because it was sold prior to this ruling, right?
Yeah, it sounds like this will just be for new sales. And a lot of people are looking at this and thinking, by the way, I just jumped in. I hope that was okay.
No, please.
Now, a lot of people are looking at this and thinking, well, that's it. Apple is now out of this part of the game and it's over. No, we still haven't had the whole courtroom part of this case. So this is all temporary right now. And when we get to court, then we'll be one step closer to knowing if Apple has to just do something completely different or give up on this feature. And let me rephrase that. It doesn't matter what the outcome is in court. It's going to be appealed either by Apple or by Masimo. So this is something that's going to go on for years. So
fortunately.
Yeah. So the thing to watch now is, how long does this go where Apple can't offer the feature on current and future Apple Watches? And then the other side of it is, what is going on here? We are not privy to a really key piece of information, because what's happening right now, it does not make sense. There's no reason why there's no reason we're aware of why Apple and Masimo shouldn't have been able to come to an agreement where the feature stays active. But here we are. So what do we not know?
Yeah. Well, here's the quote in one of the articles from Mac Rumors. Apple, of course, their appeal is ongoing. The company says it strongly disagrees with the ITC's decision, and it feels that the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit should reverse it. As a longer-term solution, Apple's reportedly going to be working on changes to the blood oxygen app's algorithm in order to, in an attempt to avoid Masimo's patented technology. It's unclear when those changes will be ready, or if they will be enough for Apple to avoid the patent infringement. So this is definitely something big here, because I've used it many times and I actually like it. I don't want to carry around. If I want to check my blood oxygen rate, we'd always have a little thing that would hook onto your finger, or the sensor. This is one of the most amazing things that the Apple Watch had. Is it the most important thing in the world that's on here? Probably not, at least in my opinion.
It's one of the reasons I bought an Apple Watch when the feature was introduced.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. How is it going to affect sales? And how's it also going to affect sales? People who have current watches are going to all of a sudden say, "Hey, I've got this, and this has the blood oxygen level," and are they going to start turning around and selling them on eBay, or trying to resell them and make some extra money? I hope not, but there's that thing too, because there's tons of Apple Watches out there going from Series 6 up to Series 9. So this definitely is going to be interesting. the other thing interesting was today, as we record this, there was a quote from the Masimo CEO. He says, the Apple Watch blood oxygen tester is not reliable. Customers are better off without it. He hasn't spoke to Apple personally about this, but no one from Apple has reached out for an agreement with them. So it seems like Apple's avoiding wanting to even talk to them. They don't want to have anything to do with them, which is kind of sad if that's the case. There must be something that we're not seeing here to why this all started in the first place. I mean, this guy is he just, he might be just completely against Apple? I'm not sure. But what do you think, Chuck?
So let me get this straight. Masimo is suing for Apple using their patents.
Yep.
But he turns around and says, but our product is really not all that good in the Apple Watch.
Right, because
no,
Apple did
that's not what he's saying.
Well, that's one interpretation of it, Jeff. No, I agree with you. I don't. I take anything that any of these CEOs say with a big grain of salt. So has anybody reached out? Have they not reached out? This sounds vaguely reminiscent of Tim Sweeney, and so I can't get excited over his. All right, Ben. I can't get excited over him as a source of much of anything because everything he says is going to be self-serving. And look, rightly so. He's got a position to advocate. He's got shareholders or investors in his company, so he has to take that position. But that doesn't mean I have to believe it.
Yeah,
and that's fair.
Well, I'll quote this what it says. It's Joe Kiani is the CEO of Masimo. He said that he has not spoken to anyone from Apple personally, and no one from Apple has reached out about an agreement. He did say there have been some court-ordered mediations he is unable to discuss, so the more than likely to be additional meetings in the future, but he does not believe those meetings will serve as steps to settling this legal dispute with Apple. So, this is where we're at with this. So this first time I've seen in all the years we've been covering Apple that they've actually had to give in to a company that was doing this because of that they proved their case that they did indeed infringe on their patent.
Well, they proved their case to ITC.
Yeah.
ITC, I mean. That's right. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah. I think the wording here is really important because the Masimo CEO is saying he has not personally had talks with Apple. That doesn't mean that his company and Apple have not had talks even before the court-ordered mediations. And we know he wasn't involved in those mediations because he says he has not talked to Apple personally. So, I think there's some spin happening here.
Yeah.
But we're missing an important piece of information and
that he can't talk about. And Apple's not going to talk about. And this is going to be interesting to watch how this whole thing plays out.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dave, you said something about the little thing that goes on the end of your finger. I could put something on the end of my finger that I'd like to share the Masimo.
But
there we have a show title.
Yes. But
Check's
honestly,
Masimo finger.
There's that show title. You made it simple for me this week. Oh my gosh, you crack me up. Meanwhile, if you go to Apple's website right now at this point, where to purchase an Apple Watch, there's a big banner right at the top there that says the blood oxygen sensor is not available, and it's right in the banner right at the top on Apple's website. So
if you change if you use a VPN and change the country that you're hitting the Apple site from, I'm assuming you don't get the banner because it's only in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. So right at the top says Apple Watch Series 9 and Ultra 2 no longer include the blood oxygen feature. It's a simple banner. Oh yeah. I'm not going to do it now because I'll break connection here, but I'm going to be, I would probably think that, in any other country, it's not going to, it is available. So what's the sake now? Now anybody in the US can just go over the border in Canada and buy an Apple Watch, right?
Yeah. Oh, in fact, I actually saw comments on like Mac Rumors posts of guys going like, "Hey guys, I'll be your Canadian friend now."
Yeah. So Well, we'll continue to cover it. It's going to be definitely interesting to see where this goes. It's an unfortunate thing with this, but we got to go into the court system, see what happens, and I guess we'll go from there. Anybody else have any last more comments about the watch until we can move on? All right. One thing I wanted to bring up here, I thought this was interesting, is I didn't realize there was an actual limit of devices on the Find My feature. And Apple quietly increased the Find My limit to 32 items. The Find My had a limit of 16 as of iOS 16, and it was confirmed recently in a support document. So it's easy to accumulate AirTags and Find My compatible devices. So I guess that limit of 16 items started to hit pretty quickly for people because some people might have 10 AirTags, and there's 10 devices right there. Mm-hmm. So it was first discovered by someone who was a user on X, and also that was also discovered on Mac Rumors. So they just went ahead and doubled it. And then there's a link here in the show notes for the support document that talks about it. But 32 items, that's pretty hard to reach. My opinion. Who has 32 Apple devices that you can do for Find My?
Here's the thing on that. It's not just one person. Now you can share your AirTags with the family.
Yep.
So that 32, that limit of 32 is a lot more attainable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think, Dave, I think you said it. I think AirTags is one of the big things that's driving this because now you want to put an AirTag in your car, you want to put an AirTag on your luggage, you want to put an AirTag on your backpack.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Pardon me. How difficult would it be to go through about 3, 4, 5 sets of AirTags, tagging things that you want to keep track of or want to make sure that don't disappear on you? So, and then you have the other manufacturers. This kind of goes back to CES, but I won't take us there. That are developing different size and shape trackers. That will fit in your wallet, so you can track your wallet, and and you want one on your keys. I mean, I don't have 32, but I could pretty quickly see how it would be easy to get there.
Well, don't forget, you can also buy third-party products that have AirTag built in.
Well, Find My,
for instance.
Yeah, or Find My built in, but that counts towards your limit. And bike stores here, because bikes are a huge thing here. You go in and you can buy these attachments that hook on to like the water bottle cage holders.
Yep.
That have Find My built in. So let's say you have a couple bikes, 3 bikes. That's really common here. Each one of those has one of those on it. Oh, that's 3 more devices counting against your total.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, I kind of wish they would have made it 64.
Yeah.
I bet eventually it will be more than 32.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
And by the way, Chuck, I do want to buy that product you mentioned that I know you talked to put that in my wallet, because I always am trying to find my wallet, and that would be perfect to help me out with that.
It's funny, all the things you think about, and there's some things I don't really stress over losing because I just don't lose them, and then there are other things that, I definitely want to track that because, well, weren't you the one that for either this year's gift guide or last year's gift guide picked an Apple TV remote case that had a spot for an AirTag?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right there's one right there.
Well, too bad you don't need it anymore because the remote has it built in because Apple finally opened it.
But that's still one.
No,
that's
it was, yeah. Well, don't need it anymore now. So
yeah.
But yes, you are correct. So that's gonna be interesting. See where that goes. So we wouldn't have to be able to go off the show without talking about Vision Pro. I mean, that's got a lot of discussions going on right now. So I had some more discussions I wanted to hit. A couple things that actually stood out to me that the Vision Pro may not have. I find interesting. The first one is the fact that Apple did get the FCC approval for the Vision Pro this week. Obviously, they had to get that ready before they could release this. So, but it does show that it does not support Wi-Fi 6E. I find that to be very interesting. Why we don't only go to Wi-Fi 6? So, almost convinced me, like Ben, you've always been saying, this is a 1.0 product. This might be truly a 1.0 product if you're not even supporting the most latest version of the Wi-Fi standard beyond 7, of course.
I mean, it might even be pretty much a 0.7 product at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have thoughts on that, Chuck?
The only thing is lead times. I always think about these things with lead times as far as the supply chain, the manufacturing process, and all that. And I don't know, and I'm not enough of a hardware geek to know if that requires specific hardware or not. But at the end of the day, we've had these discussions before. There are folks that want every single thing packed into the very first version of the product, and they refuse to acknowledge that there will be a version 2, 3, 4, 5. They have to have something. And I just have to wonder how important that particular standard is to what the Apple Vision Pro is right now, or will be in a couple weeks.
Yep. So yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see where that goes. Also, many of the big press folks, as well as content creators, of course, were able to get another hands-on with the Vision Pro before its release. I article here in the show notes here about this, notably Joanna Stern, Sherilyn Lowe from Engadget, and I also saw Justine and a number of others. Some of the folks were the biggest complaint was the fact of its weight. They were questioning a little bit how its weight is, as well as the strap, because some were using the single strap, and then when they put the double strap on, they got a little more comfort with that. So that was the first impressions of that. So it's definitely something to see where this is going to go, all the demos that they've done, and how it's going to feel when they do that. So definitely going to be interesting, I guess they say. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Of course, the weight is an issue.
Yeah,
you're putting a lot of hardware into a small space, and you're hanging it off the front of your face. And our heads are not designed to do that. So, yeah, of course, that's a thing. Doing the thing with the strap that goes over the top of your head, that will help, but it's still not going to make the weight go away. And until the weight can be reduced and balanced more front to back, this is going to be an ongoing thing, and it doesn't matter who the manufacturer is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that there's going to be someone that's going to come out with some kind of counterweight device. As Jeff said, and it's a great point that, you're putting this here in front of your face, so it's naturally going to pull. So if you could counterweight it a little bit, but then that means there's even more weight on your neck. So, this is a terrible example, but I'll use it anyway. But when I was a kid, I caddied at the golf course. And it was always easier honest to God, it was easier to carry 2 bags than one, because you were balanced. And so you're carrying a lot more weight, but you're balanced. And I definitely foresee somebody coming out with something like this that's going to look a little bit clunky, but probably is going to be functionally useful and beneficial.
Yeah.
Yep. Look, the Vision Pro Revision A is about getting the ball rolling. Right now, it's subject to existing technology, which leave it kind of bulky and heavy and unobtainable for most people.
Right.
Apple is playing the long game with this. Future Visions and Vision Pro and Visions Pro will be lighter, will be more obtainable. People have to be patient. This is where just look at how chunky the first iPhone was.
Look at Mac laptops.
Yeah.
Go back to the 90s and then follow that all the way up through the MacBook Air and the current MacBook Air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or how about the original Mac Portable? That's kind of where we are with Vision Pro today.
You mean the one with the lead acid car battery?
Yeah, the Mac Luggable.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Looked like a sewing machine. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're right. It did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that thing was huge.
But even the original MacBooks, by today's by this, you couldn't wait to get your hands on one. But by today's standard, it's like, I carried that around. I used that, really?
With that tiny screen and it was so heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still have my 900 megahertz G3 Icebook. That thing is way thicker and heavier than my 14-inch MacBook Pro.
And that doesn't even have a handle on it.
Yeah.
Like my original iBook. The toilet seat version.
I've still got one of those in the basement. Yep.
So one more thing I'll mention is the App Store is launched. So people are already starting to look at the App Store, what's going to start being available to developers. We'll see that. But I'm going to save a few of the other things we can talk about on the next show, because there's, like I said, it's going to be endless. So we'll still be talking about it. They are going to have pre-orders it's actually tomorrow, is it not?
Tomorrow.
Yes, it is tomorrow. Tomorrow, the January 19th, as we record this. So you pre-order it, was it 5 a.m. Pacific time, which is 8 a.m. Eastern time. So everybody's going to be breaking down the doors to buy one of these tomorrow, right? So we'll see where it goes. So that's some of the topics. I wanted to hit some of the news stories I had on this week, and I can't believe this, that it was actually 1 year ago today, January 18th, 2023, as 2024, as we record this, that the Apple reintroduced the HomePod. It's been 1 year since that happened. If we remember, they introduced it in 2017. I've got two of the original OG HomePods, and a few of us here too as well. And the price was high, and when it started, the price started dropping down, and then now it's out, and it's been back on the market for a whole year, and they haven't really done much with it since. I don't know how, you don't hear much about it, but they did add some good features to it, like using have the ultra wideband chip, and a lot of other couple features. So what do you think, Jeff? I know you love the HomePod so much. The new one.
I have a very dysfunctional relationship with HomePod, because
I know that
the HomePod's dysfunctional.
Yeah, I mean, I love the HomePod, and it just frustrates the crap out of me at the same time, especially because I know what it should be able to do. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so the fact that we haven't seen or heard anything new about a HomePod refresh or a HomePod mini refresh, I am not surprised at all. This is a product that Apple is taking a very slow approach to refresh cycles. And I would like to see them do something with the home. Well, what I'd like is the OG HomePod with all of the features that the second gen HomePod has, because the OG HomePod has better audio quality. So give me the better audio quality, all the new features, and that'll be cool. But still, I am not. This is a casual entertainment device. This is not part of your true voice controlled life, because that part is still. Oh my God, it's even more broken today. Here we go. I'm about to rant. All right. Yes, yesterday, I did one of my S-Lady commands, which triggers a shortcut that does a very specific light setting. And it's broken. And then I realized other shortcuts that I call through the S-Lady via HomePod, they are all broken. And then when I went to well, it turns out they're just broken in general. I went to my iPhone and I tried to just manually launch the short, and it doesn't even work. Anyhow.
Well, yeah. Or my favorite one. Hey, S-Lady, turn off the timer. Sorry, since the timer is on the phone and not this HomePod, and we cannot bother to have devices communicate, I can't do anything.
Or okay, how about this one? There's music playing on the HomePod in the room where you are. Your phone rings, but you can't get your HomePod to automatically pause when you answer a phone call. So you say, "Hey, S-Lady, pause." And now your iPhone comes up. Instead of the HomePod just pausing, your iPhone says, "Pause the music on the living room HomePod." Oh, I'm not going to make you edit, but I really want to make you have to edit. And anyhow, I know I'm taking us off topic, but
no, it's HomePod.
It's HomePod. And boy, we need to see some serious software updates. We need to see some serious behind the scenes updates on the whole machine learning, voice recognition, AI, whatever they want to call it. I don't care what they call it.
Yeah, WWDC wish list.
Right. Yeah. So at this point, hey, happy anniversary, HomePod, and bless your little heart, and I hope someday that you're not just a little dysfunctional silicon speaker brick that I yell at every day, and sometimes you do what I want.
But thank you for the temperature sensor upgrade. I use that a lot.
There you go.
Okay,
So
you have thoughts, Chuck?
That's useful.
Well, I want to ask Jeff a question, and because I hear everything you're saying, and I've experienced some of it, not all of it, but some of it. But don't you find that same issue with all of the smart home platforms, that they don't necessarily communicate with each other? Because I can tell you that I've had similar and frankly more annoying experiences with the A lady. Now, she doesn't control a phone for me, but she controls other things for me, and I have the same kind of issues. So, at least in my experience, I mean, I feel like this is something that they all need, and I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know how to do it, other than to address, create names or specific IDs, I guess audio IDs for my various devices.
Which you actually have to do on all the platforms.
Yeah. And so, that's the thing, and so I feel like we're trying to squeeze technology out of science fiction technology into real world technology that just isn't there yet. Should it be there? That's another discussion. Can it be there? That's an even different discussion, but it's not there.
Well, Chuck, you are spot on. It is not there. And there are problems that I have with the A-Lady platform. And I actually have more Echo devices in my space than HomePods. And the Echo devices tend to be more graceful with handling commands. I may not know which device is doing something, and I will often be surprised at which device actually responds. But the device that responds tends to do the thing, unless for some reason it's having a communication failure and simply can't, like, it just suddenly can't talk to my Hue bulbs anymore. And you try again a couple minutes later and it's working again. Was that an A-Lady problem? Was that a Hue problem? I don't know. Also, is it an S-Lady problem? Is it a Hue problem? I don't know. Here's where I see the big difference between the A-Lady and S-Lady issues that I have. With the A-Lady, I have to be trained how to say the exact things, use the exact words in the correct order to make something happen. So I have a certain expectation of how this is going to work because of the way I have been trained. With the S-Lady, you don't do that. So it's supposed to be able to learn from you and process and come to the correct conclusion and do the correct task without you having to be trained how to say something. So that totally changes the dynamic of what I expect to happen. And so when an A-Lady doesn't do something, typically I'm annoyed because I realize, oh, wait, I have to go and look up in an app to see what the words were that I was supposed to say. Now I remember now to work. With the S-Lady, you can't do that. And and so it becomes more frustrating. Well, frustrating in a different way, because it should work based on the way it's designed, and yet there are just ongoing problems. And yeah, so we are still very much at the incredibly early stages of this. These are fun hobby technologies. These are not technologies that I see as products that any of these companies should be promoting as a true customer feature.
Your point about expectations is interesting and well played. I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. So as long as I'm just totally usurping all of this, we're seeing problems right now, like the G Lady. That's basically abandoned at this point. I mean, not really, but it really feels that way. The A Lady, Amazon is completely at a loss how to not lose money by the truckload on their voice recognition technology. And they're even at the point where they are field testing, making people pay to a subscription to use the A-Lady. They want you to pay to use something that is fundamentally broken. And so when I discovered that, I realized, okay, I'm at the point now where I'm looking around and wondering how much longer before I take all of the Echo devices that are in my place and just unplug them and toss them in a box, because I won't be able to use them.
I'm already at that stage.
Yeah, and I expect it won't be long before the only A-Lady device I have is the Echo Show on my desk, and that's because it gives me a big clock.
Yep, I've got it right here next to me.
Mine sitting
but
right down here.
And I have that, but I do have an Echo in my bathroom, so you got to have something to listen to when you're taking a shower, right? So that's great. I think I'm glad this actually turned into a good conversation of what the future of HomePod is.
Thank you for letting me soapbox.
I knew you would have some good insights on that, and this year anniversary of the.
You totally know how to flip
gen.
the switch to just get me to go. It's okay, Dave. Here's what I'm picturing. You're thinking, we might be thin on content tonight. Okay, I'm going to bring up HomePod, and then I'm just going to sit back and let Jeff go.
Buckle up.
Strike the match and watch what happens.
It's all good. It's all good. So we got a couple more topics here, just news stories before we wrap up here. U.S. developers can now offer non-app store purchasing option, but Apple will still collect commissions. This was a couple days ago as we record. Apple is making major changes to the U.S. iOS App Store policies, and developers are now able to direct customers to a non-app store purchasing option for digital goods. Apple is allowing apps to feature a single link to a developer website that leads to an in-app purchase alternative. But Apple will plan to continue to collect the 12 to 27% commission on content bought this way. And Apple's updates and the backstory that led to this is a bit complicated, but what iPhone and iPad users need to know is that some apps in the US storefront will feature a link to their website where subscriptions and other content can be purchased outside the App Store. This is pretty amazing. Apple was very, 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 very strongly against this, but I think the EU is the big thing that motivated this, and they don't want to have separate app stores in different locations around the world. Let me start with you, Chuck. What do you think about this?
Dave, I've expressed myself so many times about this. It just, Apple built the app stores, and now everybody's saying I have a right to come in and do my thing within your app store, or you have to let me, use a different payment method or whatever. And I applaud Apple for trying. They're playing a dangerous game with all the anti-corporate sentiment that's going around right now, but they're sticking to their guns. And so I sincerely hope it doesn't backfire on them. But I want to see them keep getting the prices. And I know there's some developers that are not going to be happy with me saying that. But, Apple is a big company, and Apple has to generate the revenues to keep things going. I want my app store to be secure so that when I go there and download something, I am as assured as I can be that there's not going to be malware hiding in it, like in a certain other platform's store that we could name.
Yeah, true. What do you think, Ben?
I mean, they're doing exactly what Tim Cook said they would.
8.
Yeah, minus the 3% for payment processing fees. Yeah. But honestly, I mean, with it being within the App Store, it's completely within their rights to do this. That being said, according to the rumor mill, the playing with fire sentiment is absolutely right. Yeah. And if you haven't seen it, well, the end of March could get really interesting.
It could. How about you, Jeff?
Apple is not running a charity, and the App Store is not a charity service. Okay. That said, what Apple's doing is not good optics, and it does have some developers getting really worried. But I was reading, it was during Fireball. John had a post today about the sentiment that Mac app developers have right now, which is, will Apple expect us to give them a commission for apps that are sold completely outside of the Mac App Store? And John's take is, no, that's not going to happen. And I think his logic is sound. It's not going to happen. Doesn't change the fact that developers are now suddenly really worried. And what does that do to their incentive to support a platform? So this is a bad optics move, but at the same time, Apple needs to generate the revenue that will allow them to run the App Store. Yes, they're a huge company. They make all the money in the world. That doesn't make the App Store a charity.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think they should announce whether there are going to be any fees for non-App Store apps.
Yeah, yes, they should just come right out and say, "Hey, we hear what you're saying. We get your concerns. Don't worry, not going to happen." That would be a really good move.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask this question. But I want to make sure it's as uninflammatory as I can make it. So if developers are worried, what platform are they going to go to?
They already have Windows.
Yeah, like I said, what platform are they going to go to? Thank you for the straight line, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking mobile platforms more than anything. I mean, because there's only one other one that has its own set of problems and that are way beyond the scope of this show. But it's a dangerous game. But at the end of the day, there is only one iPad, there is only one iPhone, and those are the devices people want and are using. And that has been demonstrated over and over and over. And so I'm not suggesting that Apple should grind the developers under their heel, but at the same time, your comment about them not being a charity is a perfect one.
I mean, at the same time, individual developers or small companies aren't charities either. And where are they going to go to? That answer might be none.
You're reading my mind, Ben.
Yep.
Yeah, it's okay. If you look at it from just the cold, hard, the heart of stone approach, if your revenue stream comes from selling apps through Apple's App Store for iOS, and the cost of doing that is higher than your business can afford, then you have a bad business model. Now, granted, there's all kinds of nuances in there, but like if you're going straight Vulcan on this, that would be the bottom line. And then in that case, what's the solution? You figure out a different business model where the money and the math works, or you don't have a business.
Yeah.
And as I'm saying this, I'm also very well aware of the fact that could mean that there are a lot of really, really good and valuable apps that would just be gone. And that would be a travesty for users and the developers, and ultimately a bad look for Apple.
I mean, the great thing about the App Store, as it has been, it's allowed a bunch of those small developers to have really major apps. I really don't want to go back to the olden days where you can get an app from Microsoft or Adobe and Microsoft or Adobe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jeff, I couldn't help but think, though, as you were describing the business model thing, that sounds suspiciously like discussions we had over subscription models.
Mm-hmm. Because
the developers basically said, look, I can't continue to do this with these spikes in revenue and then the troughs that go with it. They needed and wanted that steady stream. And so we've all had to reevaluate what software we use and therefore what we are willing to pay for.
And that's totally reasonable. I mean, developers, they had to evaluate their business model, and they realized subscriptions are the way that they can sustain their business. Then we as consumers look at that. We're like, okay, I need to look at my budget, and I have to decide what apps I really need so that I'm paying for just the things that matter to me, that I actually do need to have. Yep, that's the way it works. And there are some apps that I have chosen not to use that I would like to use, but their subscription, which is totally fine. It's just that the price that I would pay is not in line with my budget or what I actually need from the app. That's okay.
Yeah.
It just means I'm not using that app, and no ill will towards the developers for doing that.
All right. This was such a great conversation. I knew I was going to get some good discussion out of these two stories. So glad we were able to go through this and find out more. This was great information. But we have come to a close of this episode of the show. Let's go ahead and wrap up for this week. That's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Mastodon at intouchwithios, at techhangout.social. Support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We would really appreciate it. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We'd really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you are notified when we are live streaming, which is Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific on our YouTube channel. And Brett was in the chat tonight. Good to see you, Brett. Thanks for being here. It's at youtube.com/intouchwithios, where you can watch the current and past live streams as well as listen to past shows. Visit In Touch with iOS magazine on Flipboard, where many of the topics we discuss are flipped into that magazine. The link is on our show notes. But and you also can subscribe to the show in your favorite podcatcher, which includes Pocket Casts, Overcast, and Apple Podcasts, and many others. But better yet, go to intouchwithios.com, where all the links to and all the ways to listen to us are on that website. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Mastodon at DaveG65 at mastodon.cloud. Thank you so much, Chuck Joyner, for being here and all your insights this week. I appreciate it. Where can people find you?
MacVoices.com is where you can find everything. As we talked earlier, I'm in the process of releasing the interviews from CES, along with interspersing them in with some of our more regular programming. That's something that's also a little new this year. We also do Mac Voices Live Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time it is, wherever you are, right here on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. All 3 of these gentlemen are regular guests on that. I have no idea why they keep coming back, but they do, and I'm glad they do. On the socials, you can find me as at Chuck Joyner, and that's pretty much on all the major socials and some of the minor ones as well. Dave, thanks so much for having me, and in spite of the fact that I don't sound completely healthy, I appreciate it.
You sounded great. Appreciate it. Ben Roethig, thank you for being here, and we've survived the Arctic cold weather and snow, but I'm glad you were able to make it and work round 1 anyway. So where can people find you?
Well, you can find me at Ben Roethig on your social media of choice. You can find my writings at roethig.tech. On Tuesdays, you can find me on Mac Voices Live with Mr. Chuck Joyner. On Thursday and Friday morning/afternoon, you can find me with Jeff Gamet on the British Tech Big and Mac shows. And of course, you can always find me here on In Touch with iOS with our host, Dave Ginsburg.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate that. And last but certainly not least, Jeff Gamet, as always, it's an absolute thrill to have you here. Where can people find you?
Dave, it's always a treat to get to hang out with you. So, excuse me. Thank you. All right. So, social medias. Jay Gamet on pretty much everything. Mastodon, Instagram, and Threads. That's where I'm posting most of my stuff right now. Then for shows, Chuck, for whatever reason, keeps letting me come back on Mac Voices Live on Tuesdays. And Chuck, I really do appreciate that you are so incredibly tolerant. And Dave, you too. Then here on Thursdays for In Touch with iOS. Then on the British Tech Network. Thursdays, The Mac Show. Fridays, The Big Show. And also, did I get it backwards? Whatever.
Yes.
Just whatever. I'm doing both the shows, and it's what everyone else said for the days. That's what matters. Anyhow,
Yes.
and the Context Machine. Brian Chaffin and I do that too.
Yes, that's a great show. All right. Thank you. And thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we enjoyed doing it. And we'll talk again soon.